This story includes fictional sensitive themes.
He fell asleep angry.
That was always the most dangerous kind.
Not the loose, slack sleep that came after a good day. Not the heavy, forgetful kind that dulled everything. This was lighter than that, shallow, his jaw still tight. One arm flung across his chest like he might wake up swinging if the wrong sound reached him. The couch still smelled like him, beer and the cologne he wore when he wanted to pretend he was charming. I stood in the hallway and counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. They came out uneven, rasping slightly, like his body hadn't decided whether it was done with the night yet. The room smelled like stale alcohol and sweat and the sharp tang of something broken. The lamp lay on its side near the couch, the shade cracked, glass scattered across the carpet like ice. I didn't look at it for long. Looking made you hesitate. My bag waited by the door, exactly where I'd left it earlier while he was in the shower. I'd packed slowly, carefully. Only things I wouldn't miss if I had to drop it and run. Clothes, cash, my ID tucked inside a paperback he'd never bothered to open.
I didn't know if he'd come after me himself.
Or if he'd do what he usually did when he was angry enough, send someone else to finish it. The thought settled cold and heavy in my chest. My ribs ached when I shifted my weight. Not the sharp pain from earlier. That had faded into something dull and familiar, the kind you learn to breathe around. My body knew the limits, even when my mind didn't want to acknowledge them. I took one step forward. The floorboard held. Another step. Still quiet. I reached the small table by the wall and brushed against it without meaning to. Something tipped, just barely. And then the picture frame slid off the edge. I caught it instinctively. Too late. It hit the floor with a sharp crack that sounded impossibly loud in the silence. I froze. Every muscle locked. My breath stopped halfway in my chest, lungs burning as I waited. On the couch, he shifted. A low sound came from his throat. A grunt. His arm moved, fist scraping against the cushion. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My fingers went numb around the edge of the frame, my hands shaking so hard I was afraid I'd drop it again. I pressed it against my leg, anchoring it there, and stared at the dark shape of his body. Seconds stretched. 10, 20. He turned onto his side, muttered something slurred and ugly. My name tangled in it. Then went still again. I didn't exhale until my vision started to blur. Carefully, I lowered the frame to the floor, easing it down until it made no sound at all. My knees trembled as I straightened, adrenaline buzzing sharp and electric beneath my skin. Almost caught. That thought pulsed in my head as I moved again, slower now, every step measured. The hallway felt longer than it ever had before. The front door loomed ahead, its lock too loud in my imagination, its hinges suddenly suspicious. I reached for my shoes and stopped. The laces would take too long. I slipped them on without tying them, heart hammering, and eased my hand toward the doorknob. Don't rush, don't rush. The metal was cold against my palm. I turned it a fraction at a time, pausing whenever the faintest sound echoed through the apartment. Nothing. The door opened. I slipped outside and closed it behind me just as carefully, easing it back into place until the latch caught with the softest click I could manage. The night air hit me like a slap. Cold, damp, real. I stood there for a moment, barefoot on the concrete, the quiet street stretching out in front of me. My car waited at the curb, trunk already packed, paint dull under the streetlight. I moved toward it quickly now, fear pushing me faster than caution. The car door opened too loud. I flinched, glancing back at the apartment, half expecting a window to light up, his voice to cut through the quiet the way it always did. Nothing happened. That scared me more than if it had. I slid into the driver's seat and closed the door, my hands shaking so badly it took 2 tries to get the key into the ignition. Please. The engine turned over. Too loud. My heart leapt into my throat as headlights flared against the buildings, and then the porch light snapped on behind me. I looked up. The apartment door was opening. I didn't think. I slammed my foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires spitting gravel as I pulled away from the curb, my chest tight and burning as I waited for shouting, for his voice, for headlights in my mirror. The street stayed empty. I didn't slow down. I didn't look back again until I was 3 blocks away. And by then, the light was gone. The door closed, the building dark. The highway swallowed me whole. Mile markers blurred past as the town disappeared behind me. My hands locked around the steering wheel, shoulders still tight, waiting for sirens or the low growl of his truck coming up fast behind me.
Nothing came.
Somewhere past the county line, my vision blurred and I realized I was crying. Not loud, not shaking. Just tears slipping down my face while I drove, my body still braced for impact that never came. I didn't know anyone in the town I was headed to.
Didn't know where I'd sleep tomorrow night.
Didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty.
I wasn't going back.
And for the first time in a long time, the road ahead felt like more than escape. It felt like a choice. I didn't know it yet, but the silence I'd left behind wasn't surrender. It was permission. The parking lot outside the motel looked temporary.
Like it had been poured and painted fast. Like no one expected anyone to stay long enough to notice the cracks.
One flickering lamp buzzed over the stairwell, its light weak and uneven, making the dark feel louder. My headlights swept across peeling numbers and cigarette burns in the railing before dying when I turned the engine off. Silence rushed in. Not peaceful silence. The kind that makes your body stay alert, like it's still waiting for impact.
I sat there with my hands in my lap, forcing myself to breathe until my pulse slowed, waiting for the feeling, the certainty that he wasn't behind me, that I hadn't dragged the past all the way into this town with me.
My phone lay face down on the passenger seat. No missed calls, no messages. That should have been a relief. Instead, it made my skin crawl, like the quiet was just the inhale before the scream. I got out anyway, because staying wasn't an option anymore. The air smelled like wet asphalt and cheap detergent from the office next door. Somewhere down the street, something fried, grease and onions, hung in the wind. Late-night food for people who weren't running. I grabbed my bag and shut the car door quietly, even though there was no reason to be quiet anymore. Old habits don't vanish just because you change zip codes.
The stairs creaked under my weight.
I froze halfway up, heart locking. The sound echoed. Then nothing. I forced myself to keep moving, one step at a time, like if I went slow enough, the world wouldn't notice me. Room 212. The numbers on the door were crooked, one nail missing, like even the sign had tried to leave. My hands shook as I fumbled the keycard. Once, twice, 3 times before it worked. The door opened with a soft click and a groan of hinges that sounded tired of people like me. Inside, the room was sad. A bedspread that had once been beige. A table bolted to the wall. A lamp that leaned slightly. Curtains that didn't quite close.
But it was mine.
For tonight.
I stepped inside and locked the deadbolt.
Then the chain. Then I checked both again. Only when I heard the solid clink of metal catching did my lungs pull in a real breath. I dropped my bag and stood there, listening. Sounds came from every direction. TV static through the wall, laughter, a cough, water running somewhere nearby. A man arguing in a low voice that rose and fell like a thread. I crossed to the mirror in the bathroom. The light was too bright. My reflection looked wrong, not because of makeup or hair, but because my eyes were still scanning.
Bruises bloomed along my collarbone, fading yellow around my wrist. My ribs ached when I breathed too deep.
He hadn't broken anything this time. He hadn't needed to. I splashed cold water on my face and whispered the thing I hadn't dared to say out loud before. I left. It didn't sound brave. It sounded like a confession.
Footsteps moved outside.
Slow, heavy. I killed the bathroom light and stood frozen, listening through the thin door like it was the only thing between me and the past.
A knock echoed down the hall.
Not my door, 2 doors down. A woman answered, annoyed. A man laughed low. Another voice, older, rougher, said something that made her curse and slam her door. Footsteps drifted closer. Closer. Then stopped outside my room. My body went cold.
A shadow passed beneath the door.
I didn't breathe, didn't blink. Then it moved on. Later, another knock, this time on my door. Hey, sweetheart. My blood turned to ice. I stayed silent. You new here? he asked, amused. You got a man in there with you? I pressed my hand over my mouth, shaking. Eventually, he got bored. Suit yourself? Footsteps faded. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, knees to my chest. I didn't cry. Tears felt like something I couldn't afford yet. When I finally lay down, I stayed fully dressed. Shoes by the bed, keys within reach. Light on. Sleep came like surrender. And when morning light leaked through the gap in the curtain, I whispered it again, softer this time. I left. I didn't know yet that this place wouldn't be where I stayed. Only where someone would notice I was worth protecting. The door was heavier than it looked. No bell rang when I pushed inside. The smell hit me first. Dough, heat, coffee, and something sharper underneath. Like smoke that had been scrubbed away but never fully erased. 4 men stood near the counter. 3 listened. 1 spoke. Family orders first, he said calmly. If there's a delay, it comes to me, not the floor. No one questioned him. No one needed to. Then he stopped mid-sentence. Because I was standing there, every head turned at once, not curious, assessing. My pulse jumped, but I forced myself forward anyway. Hi, I said. I'm looking for work. The man in charge didn't answer right away. He studied me slowly, like he was checking for something that didn't belong. We're not hiring, he said. It wasn't rude, it was controlled. I already tried next door, I said. They said business is slow. I can do prep, register, cleanup, whatever you need. Silence stretched. One of the men behind him shifted, like my presence had disrupted a rhythm they were used to. The man in charge tilted his head slightly. Who sent you? The question landed heavy. What? I said. Who, he repeated evenly, sent you? My stomach dropped. No one, I said quickly. I just moved here. His eyes narrowed. Not angry, but sharp, measuring. People don't just move into this block, he said, and they don't walk into my place asking for work unless they're desperate or stupid. A beat. Which one are you? Heat crept up my neck. Desperate. His gaze dropped then, not like the man at the motel, not invasive, observant. My wrist, the faint bruise near my collarbone. The way my shoulders stayed tight, like I was braced for impact. His attention wasn't personal, it was procedural. You bring trouble with you? He asked. No, I said immediately. I'm trying to get away from it. That earned me another long look. One of the men behind him cleared his throat. The man in charge didn't look back. Out, he said, just one word. The 3 men moved immediately, filing through a door to the left. As one passed, the man in charge rolled his sleeve back slightly, resting his forearm on the counter. That's when I saw it. A tattoo, simple, black ink, not decorative. A symbol I didn't recognize, but something about it felt deliberate, like it wasn't meant to be noticed by people who didn't already know what it meant. When the door shut behind them, the room felt smaller, more dangerous. He leaned forward, resting both hands on the counter. I don't want problems, he said. No stories, no people showing up, no sniffing around. I'm not here to cause anything, I said. I just need work. He studied me another moment. Then, where are you staying? The Cedar Crest. His jaw tightened. That place isn't safe, he said flatly. I know. He exhaled through his nose like he didn't like the answer, or the fact that I already knew. He reached under the counter and slid out an application. You can start today, he said. Cash weekly. Relief hit so fast my chest ached. Thank you, I said. He didn't smile. If anyone comes looking for you, he said quietly, you tell me. It wasn't an offer. It was a line drawn. I nodded. My name's Anna, I added. He didn't repeat it, just nodded once like he'd store it away for later. As I tied on the apron, I felt the shift. I hadn't been hired because he felt sorry for me. I'd been hired because he'd decided to keep me where he could see me. And as I started my first shift, something settled heavy in my chest. Logan hadn't asked if I was running from someone. He'd asked who sent me, which meant in his world, danger didn't come from broken men. It came from organized ones. Logan didn't waste time. Come on, he said, already moving away from the counter. I'll show you where things are. I followed him, careful to keep my steps quiet, like I was walking through someone else's house without permission to touch anything.
The pizzeria looked different once you stepped behind the counter. More deliberate.
Less casual. Logan moved through the space like he knew exactly how much room he needed, like every inch belonged to him, whether he was standing in it or not. "That's the prep table," he said, pointing. "Dough comes in early. Sauce stays covered. If it's not labeled, don't touch it." I nodded. He stopped in front of a solid steel door near the back, thicker than the others, hinges reinforced. "This door," he said, "stays closed." I glanced at it. "What's back there?" I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes flicked to mine. "Nothing you need," he said. The way he said it ended the conversation. I nodded again. He walked on, opening a smaller door that led into the kitchen. Heat hit me immediately, along with the smell of yeast and tomato, and something metallic underneath. Sharp enough to register. Gone just as fast. A man stood at the oven, older, gray threaded through his beard, eyes calm and assessing.
"This is Frank," Logan said. "He runs the kitchen."
Frank nodded once. Not unfriendly, not curious, just aware. "And that's Maria," Logan added, gesturing toward the front where a woman stood behind the register, counting change with practiced ease. "She keeps this place running."
Maria looked up, took me in, then smiled. Soft but sharp, like she'd already clocked the tension I was trying to hide. "New girl?" she asked. "Anna," I said.
"You'll be fine," she said, like it was a fact, not encouragement. "Just listen more than you talk." Logan didn't contradict her. He showed me where the aprons were kept, where the extra cups went, which shelves were for customers, and which weren't. "Deliveries come in through the back," he said. "You don't sign for anything. You don't open boxes. If someone asks you questions, you send them to me."
"What kind of questions?" I asked. "All of them," he said. That should have unsettled me more than it did, but something about his certainty made it feel contained, like whatever lived under the surface here stayed under control because he demanded it. We reached the front again, sunlight cutting across the floor through the tinted windows. "You good so far?" he asked. "Yes." He studied my face, checking whether that answer was real. Then he nodded. "Get settled." And just like that, he walked away. The morning passed in a steady rhythm. Maria showed me the register. Frank let me prep toppings. I learned when to move, when to wait, when to stay out of the way. Men came and went, not customers. Not really. They ordered little. Sometimes just coffee. Sometimes nothing at all. They spoke low, stayed brief, moved like they knew the layout better than I did. Once I saw two of them maneuver a heavy crate through the back hallway. Careful, controlled. Like dropping it wasn't an option. The steel door stayed closed. I told myself not to wonder. Around midday, something outside caught my eye.
A truck rolled past the front windows. Dark, familiar shape. My hand stilled. My heart dropped like I'd missed a step. It slowed. Just a little. I couldn't see the driver clearly. Tint, glare, angle. Then it kept moving. I forced myself to breathe. There were 1,000 trucks like that. Logan appeared beside me without a sound. "That truck slowed," he said quietly. Not a question. "I thought I was imagining it," I said. His gaze stayed on the street a second longer than necessary. "You weren't." Then he looked at me. "You okay?" I nodded too fast. "Yeah, just tired." He said. Not convinced, but he didn't push. By evening, my feet ached and my nerves felt stretched thin. Maria started closing up. Frank wiped down the kitchen and disappeared through the back. "Want to head out?" Maria asked, shrugging on her jacket. "You did good today." "I can stay and help clean," I said quickly. She laughed. "Eager, aren't you?" "Just want to pull my weight." It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. She hesitated, then nodded. "All right." She left a little while later, waving as the door shut behind her. The lock clicked. The pizzeria felt different with just me inside. Quieter. Too quiet. I wiped counters that didn't need it, straightened menus that were already straight. listened to every sound outside like it mattered.
When I finally stepped into the night, my shoulders were tight and my breath shallow.
The drive to the motel felt longer than it had that morning. Every set of headlights behind me made my pulse spike.
I parked, locked the door, and stood there with my hand on the handle, bracing myself.
Inside, I locked the deadbolt. Then the chain. Walls had never stopped him before. I didn't take my jacket off. I lay on the bed fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, every sound too loud. Sometime after midnight, something brushed the door.
Not a knock,
just contact. I froze. Footsteps passed, paused, then moved on. I didn't sleep after that.
At 4 a.m, I left.
I didn't pack. I didn't think. I just drove. The pizzeria lot was empty, dark, still.
I parked near the front and reclined the seat, curling into myself like the car could protect me better than thin walls ever could.
For the first time all night, I slept. The sun was just starting to rise when a shadow crossed my windshield.
I blinked awake, heart racing.
Logan stood a few feet away, keys in his hand, staring at my car. At me. Like he'd just realized something I'd been trying very hard to hide. I didn't mean to fall asleep. I definitely didn't mean to wake up like that. Half curled in the driver's seat, neck stiff, heart racing like I'd been caught doing something wrong. Logan stood in front of my car. Not angry, not surprised, just still. Like he'd been there long enough to understand exactly what he was looking at.
I pushed myself upright too fast. You don't sleep well, he said.
It wasn't a question. I was just resting, I said. I got here early.
His eyes moved over me in a way that felt different than anyone else's had.
Not invasive,
not possessive.
Inventory. You should have gone home, he said. I did, I replied quietly. It just didn't work.
Something unreadable crossed his face.
Come inside, he said. You can wash up before we open.
I hesitated,
then nodded. Inside, the pizzeria felt warmer than it had yesterday. Quieter, too, in that early morning way where the world hadn't decided to be loud yet. Logan moved behind the counter, rolling up his sleeves. I noticed it then, really noticed.
The strength in his forearms, the way his shirt pulled across his shoulders when he reached for something high.
I looked away quickly, annoyed with myself for noticing.
You can use the back sink, he said without turning. Maria won't be in for another hour.
Thanks. As I washed my face, I tried to calm the strange pull in my chest. Men like Logan didn't feel safe.
They felt dangerous in a different way.
And yet, when I came back out, he was pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He slid one toward me. Drink, he said. You look like you ran all night. I wrapped my hands around the mug, the warmth seeping in slowly. Why are you being nice to me? I asked before I could stop myself.
He met my gaze. I'm not, he said. I'm being careful.
That should have unsettled me. Instead, it slowed my pulse. The day took off fast after that. By lunch, the place was packed. Orders stacked. Heat rolled out of the kitchen. Voices overlapped in controlled chaos. And somehow I kept up. Logan stayed near the counter, stepping in when things backed up, fixing problems before they became messes. Once, when I nearly collided with him carrying drinks, he steadied the tray without even looking. Got you, he said. The words stuck with me longer than they should have. By late afternoon, my feet ached and my apron was dusted with flour, but my tip jar wasn't empty.
Enough to get a different motel.
Enough to feel like maybe I'd survive this. Maria checked the clock and sighed. Frank's staying late, she said. I'll head out with you when we close. Relief hit harder than I expected. Logan disappeared into his office not long after, the heavy doors shutting with quiet finality. The restaurant slowed. I wiped down tables, the sound of the rag too loud in the empty space. One of the overhead lights flickered. Just once, then steadied. Still, when I glanced toward the front windows, I thought I saw a shape outside. Gone when I focused.
The door was locked. I checked it anyway.
Locked.
When everything inside was done, I tied up the trash bags.
I'll be right back, I called toward the kitchen.
The alley was darker than usual, lit by a single flickering bulb near the dumpster. I paused,
listened.
Nothing. I dragged the bags forward, dumped them, and turned.
Anna. My blood went cold. Only one person ever said my name like that.
Thomas stepped out of the shadows like he'd always been there.
You really thought you could disappear? He said, smiling like it hurt him to do it. You run from one club straight into another? Leave, I said. He laughed. You really don't know who you're working for, do you? A door slammed open behind me. Footsteps, fast, heavy. Logan's voice cut through the alley. She told you to leave.
Thomas froze.
Then he smiled wider. Didn't expect to see you here. Logan stepped beside me, not touching, but close enough that the air shifted.
You're on the wrong side of town, Logan said calmly.
Thomas sneered. Still playing king? You take what's mine. You know my people won't let that slide.
She's not yours, Logan said, and you don't bring your war to my door.
This isn't over, Thomas spat. No, Logan agreed. It's just starting.
He looked at his men. Take him far enough that he remembers where he is.
They moved. No shouting, no struggle, just gone.
The alley fell silent. You hurt? Logan asked.
I shook my head, knees weak. Maria's voice came from behind us. I saw headlights. I've got her, Logan said without looking away.
He met my eyes. You're not going anywhere alone tonight. As he turned back toward the alley, the truth settled heavy in my chest. Thomas hadn't come for closure.
He'd come to mark territory, and by stepping between us, Logan hadn't just protected me.
He'd chosen a side. Logan locked the back door himself. I watched his hands as he did it, steady, deliberate, like nothing had happened at all. Like men didn't get dragged into alleys behind his restaurant. Like my pulse wasn't still rattling against my ribs. Sit, he said, nodding toward a chair near the counter.
I obeyed without thinking.
He didn't crowd me, didn't touch me. He poured a glass of water and slid it across the counter, then leaned back against it, arms folded.
Who was he? Logan asked.
Not what did he do, not are you okay,
just who? My ex, I said. Thomas. Something tightened in his jaw. Not surprise, recognition. How long since you left? A few days? And he followed you? Yes. He nodded once, like that settled something. You didn't call the police? No. My voice dropped. They never helped before. I figured. That scared me more than if he'd been angry. You're not staying at that motel anymore, Logan said.
I don't really have another.
That wasn't a suggestion. Maria appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp.
She's staying with me, she said before I could answer. At least a few nights. Logan glanced at her.
A look passed between them. Old, familiar. Finally, he nodded. Good. I swallowed. You know him? I asked quietly. Thomas? Logan's gaze returned to mine.
I know his club, he said, and he knows mine.
My stomach dropped. I stopped myself. What is this place? Logan didn't answer.
Maria did. The Rough Riders, she said. And Logan's the president.
The word landed heavy. President, not owner, not manager, leader. I didn't know, I whispered. You weren't supposed to, Logan said calmly.
My head spun. Then why help me? Because Thomas doesn't get to bring his mess onto my streets, he said. And because once he saw you here, it became my problem.
His men will come back, I said. Yes, Logan agreed. They will. Maria touched my arm, firm, steady.
And you don't need to be here when they do.
Logan reached into his pocket and set a folded piece of paper on the counter.
Address, he said. Frank's staying over tonight. You'll be safe.
He met my eyes again, expression unreadable. This puts you under my protection, he said. What that means, he added after a beat, you'll understand soon enough. I nodded, even though my chest felt tight. As Maria led me out, I glanced back once.
Logan was already moving. Phone out, voice low, issuing orders that didn't sound like panic.
They sounded like preparation.
Maria's apartment smelled like laundry detergent and old coffee. Normal. Safe.
She handed me a blanket and gestured toward the couch. You'll take the bed tomorrow, she said. Tonight, just breathe. I curled up where she pointed, exhaustion crashing over me all at once. "Logan's not a bad man," Maria said quietly, "but he is a dangerous one."
I stared at the ceiling. Can't say the same for Thomas.
Maria's mouth tightened. "He picked the wrong war." As the apartment settled into silence, one truth pressed heavy in my chest. I hadn't escaped violence.
I'd crossed a line between two men who knew exactly what they were capable of.
And one of them had decided I was worth protecting. I woke up on Maria's couch with the smell of coffee already in the air.
Not comfort,
Not safety.
routine.
The blanket had been tossed over me sometime in the night. My shoes were still on. My bag sat by the door where I'd dropped it, untouched. Temporary. That was the word that settled in my chest as I sat up.
Maria stood at the counter, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs like this was any other morning. Her posture was alert, awake in the way people get when they expect trouble. "You sleep?" she asked.
A little.
She nodded once. No sympathy, no softness, just confirmation.
"You know who Logan is," she said, still not looking at me. "Yes."
"President of the Rough Riders," she continued, "which means what happened last night doesn't stop at the alley." My stomach tightened. "Thomas won't let it go," she added, "and neither will his people." I wrapped my arms around myself. I don't want to be trouble. Maria finally turned. Her gaze was direct, not unkind, but not comforting either.
"You already are," she said plainly. "The question is who's willing to carry it."
The picnic was louder than it needed to be.
Engines lined up like they were on display. Men laughed too easily. Music played just high enough to pretend everything was normal. I stayed close to Maria, aware of every glance, every shift in tone. Logan stood near the grills, sleeves rolled up, forearms bare. He wasn't watching the crowd.
The crowd watched him.
When the motorcycles rolled past the road, slow, deliberate, conversation dipped. Not stopped. Measured. Logan didn't move, but the air changed. Maria set her cup down hard. "That's them." I didn't ask who. She crossed the space toward Logan without hesitation. "Enough," she said quietly, steel under every word. "You need to do something." Logan met her gaze. "I am." "She can't stay with me," Maria said. "I don't have gates. I don't have men. And I won't pretend I do." Logan's eyes flicked to me. Once. Decisive. "She stays with me," he said. Not loud, not dramatic. Final. Maria studied him, then nodded. "Good." She turned to me. "Grab your things. I'll tell Frank." Just like that, it was done. Logan walked beside me to his truck. Not in front, not behind. Close enough that no one would question it. Inside the cab, silence pressed in. Not awkward, charged. "You okay?" he asked after a moment.
"Yes," I said, then corrected myself. "I think so."
That's enough. The house was quiet when we arrived. Gates closed, lights low and deliberate. Logan scanned the drive before letting me step out.
Inside, he took my bag without asking.
"Room's down the hall," he said. "Door locks. Bathroom's yours." I hesitated. "Logan?" He turned. Close enough now that I had to tilt my head to look up at him. "You're here because it's safer," he said. "Not because I expect anything from you." My chest tightened anyway.
"I won't touch you," he continued, voice steady. "I won't ask. But you stay where I can see you."
Not ownership, responsibility. "Okay," I said. Something in his jaw eased, just slightly. As he stepped back, the space he left behind felt colder. Later, lying in a bed that wasn't mine, in a house that answered to him, one truth settled heavy and undeniable in my chest. Logan hadn't offered shelter. He'd taken responsibility, and whatever came next, it was coming for both of us.
The restaurant felt different that afternoon.
Not busy,
Not quiet, charged.
Logan stayed near the counter longer than he needed to. Every time I turned, he was there, leaning, watching, pretending not to. I told myself not to notice.
I failed.
When I reached for a stack of plates, his hand came up at the same time. Our fingers brushed, just barely.
Electric.
"Sorry," I said.
He didn't move his hand right away. "You're fine."
His voice was low, closer than it had been before. I looked up.
He was already watching me.
Not assessing, not guarding. Something warmer, something dangerous. The moment stretched. Too long, too quiet. "If you keep looking at me like that," I said softly, "you're going to get us both in trouble." His mouth curved, not a smile. Something restrained. "I already am," he said. My breath hitched. He leaned in just enough that I could feel the heat of him, smell soap and smoke and something darker underneath. "Logan." "Boss." Frank's voice cut through the room like a siren. "We're out of mozzarella."
The spell snapped. Logan straightened immediately, stepping back like nothing had almost happened. "Damn it," he muttered. Then louder, "I'll handle it."
Frank tossed him the keys. "Supplier's an hour out."
Logan glanced at me. "You riding?"
I nodded before I thought better of it. The truck felt smaller this time. Too quiet. The road stretched ahead, sun low enough to throw glare across the windshield. Logan drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually near the console. "You don't have to come," he said. "I want to," I replied. He glanced at me. "That's different." "I know." For a few miles, neither of us spoke. Then headlights filled the mirror.
Too close, too fast. Logan's jaw tightened.
"Seatbelt," he said. I had just clicked it when the truck behind us swerved, hard, coming up alongside us. Black bike jackets, patches. My stomach dropped. "Logan," I whispered.
"I see them." The truck lurched as they clipped our rear bumper. My breath left me in a sharp gasp.
Another vehicle pulled in front of us, boxing us in. "This is them," I said. "Thomas's club." Logan didn't slow, didn't panic. He accelerated. The truck behind us surged forward, trying to force us off the road.
Logan took a sharp turn onto a side street, tires screaming. Then another, hard enough that my shoulder slammed into the door. One of the bikes went down behind us. The others kept coming.
Logan hit the gas and didn't look back until we were clear. My hands were shaking when we finally pulled behind the supplier's building, engine still running. Silence slammed into the cab. I turned to him. "They're not going to stop." "No," he said. "They won't." My chest felt tight. "This is because of me." "Yes," he said honestly. I flinched. Then he added, "But it ends because of me, if you stay." I swallowed. "And if I don't?" His eyes met mine, steady, unflinching. "Then I let you go," he said, "and I don't start a war in your name." The weight of it settled between us. "If you stay," he continued, "I take Thomas's club apart, publicly, permanently." "And me?" "You stand with us," he said, "or you walk away clean. Either way, I need your answer." The door opened. The supplier waved from across the lot. Logan killed the engine.
"This is the last safe moment," he said quietly. "Choose."
"Not for tonight," he said. "For everything that comes after." I looked at him. At the man who had stepped between me and the road. Between me and the past. Between me and the worst night of my life. And I knew. Whatever I chose next would change everything. The drive back to the restaurant was quieter than the one out.
Not because the danger was gone.
Because it had been named. Logan didn't ask again. Didn't push. Didn't fill the silence with reassurances that would only unravel later. He drove like a man who already knew how this would end, and was giving me the space to arrive there on my own.
When we pulled into the lot, the lights inside were still on. Frank's truck sat crooked near the back. Maria's car beside it.
Normal. Too normal for what had just happened. Logan cut the engine, but didn't move right away.
"This is where we pause," he said. "Not stop, pause."
I nodded, my hands tight in my lap. Inside, Frank looked up the second we walked in.
"You good?" he asked Logan.
Logan nodded once. "Get the cheese inside. Lock the back." Frank didn't ask questions, just moved. Maria came toward me immediately, her eyes scanning my face, my arms, my neck.
"Oh, honey," she said softly. "You okay?"
"I think so." She didn't look convinced. She turned to Logan. "You can't let her go back out alone tonight," she said. Not a suggestion. A line drawn. Logan's gaze flicked to me, then back to Maria. "She won't," he said. Maria crossed her arms. "Good." Because I've seen those bikes circling this block before. And tonight? She shook her head. No. Silence stretched. Then Logan said it. She'll stay with me. The words landed heavy. Maria's eyebrows lifted slightly. Not shocked, not pleased.
Just confirming. That what you want? She asked me. I didn't answer right away.
I looked at Logan. He wasn't watching Maria.
He was watching me, waiting.
I don't want to keep running, I said. And I don't want him finding me again. Logan nodded once. Then you stay close, he said. Tonight? After? Maria studied both of us for a long moment, then sighed. All right, I'll lock up with Frank. She squeezed my hand as she passed. You holler if you need anything. I will.
When the doors were locked and the lights dimmed, the restaurant felt different again. Not charged, decided. Logan locked the front door himself.
Then he turned to me.
This is the part where you tell me yes or no, he said quietly.
I swallowed. If I say yes, I asked, there's no pretending later. No, he said, and no one touches you without my permission. And if I say no, I walk you out, he said, and I make sure Thomas never gets close enough to scare you again. But I don't start a war.
The weight of that settled deep in my chest.
I stepped closer.
Not touching.
Just close enough to feel him. I stay, I said. Something shifted in his expression. Not triumph.
Relief.
Say it clean, he said. I choose this, I said. I choose you. Logan exhaled slowly.
Good. He stepped closer. Too close now to pretend there wasn't something burning between us.
His hand came up, stopping just short of my waist. If you keep standing here like that, he said low, it will cost you. Maybe I'm willing to pay, I said. For one suspended breath, I thought he might kiss me.
Instead, his hand closed gently, but firmly, around my wrist.
Not claiming, anchoring.
Not yet, he said, because once I cross that line, there's no pulling back. My pulse thundered, not with impatience, but with understanding.
Then when does this become real? I asked quietly. His gaze held mine. Tomorrow morning, he said. 8 a.m. the parlor. He released me and stepped away like it cost him something. Tonight, you sleep, he said. You stay close, you stay safe. The drive to his place was quiet again, but different now. Intentional.
When we arrived, he didn't take me upstairs. He led me instead to his office.
This is where you stay tonight, he said. Door locks, no one comes in. He hesitated, then added, softer, I'll be right down the hall.
I nodded.
As I curled up on the couch, exhaustion finally pulling me under, one truth settled deep and steady in my chest.
I hadn't been chased into Logan's world. I had stepped into it.
And tomorrow, I would decide how much of myself I was willing to give. The parlor smelled faintly of antiseptic and ink. Not sharp, not overwhelming. Just present, like the room expected decisions to be made inside it.
Logan closed the door behind us and locked it.
Not dramatically, not possessively, just final. This isn't about forcing anything, he said, turning to face me. This is about protection, recognition, choice. I nodded, even though my pulse was loud in my ears. He stepped closer, not touching yet, but close enough that I felt the heat of him, close enough that the air between us tightened.
If you stay, he continued, voice low and even, you're protected by the club. No one touches you without answering to me.
My chest tightened. And the mark? His gaze flicked briefly to my wrist. Not ownership, not hunger, meaning. It tells the world you're under our protection, he said. Not claimed, not owned. A pause. Untouchable. Silence settled. And if I don't do it? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Then you walk away clean. No one follows. No one pulls you back. I searched his face, waiting for the pressure. It never came. I choose to stay, I said quietly. Something shifted in his expression then. Not relief, not victory, respect. He nodded once. Okay. The artist moved in silence. The sting came fast, sharp, controlled, then dulled into something bearable. When it was done, I looked down. The mark was small, simple, permanent. Logan didn't look at it. He looked at me. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and meant it. The artist left. The room quieted. Logan didn't move right away. Neither did I. The space between us felt heavier now, charged with everything we hadn't said. I took a step toward him. He didn't stop me. Close enough now that I could see the faint scar near his jaw. Close enough that his breath warmed my cheek. "Anna," he said softly, like a warning. I lifted my hand, resting it against his chest. Felt his heart, fast, controlled, fighting itself. "Just this," I whispered. For a heartbeat, he held still. Then he leaned in. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't careful. It was slow and deliberate, his mouth firm against mine, like he was memorizing the moment instead of taking more. His hand came to my waist, anchoring, steady, just enough to remind me how easily he could pull me closer. I kissed him back. The world narrowed to breath and heat and the ache building between us. Then he broke it, not abruptly, with restraint that felt earned. His forehead rested against mine, breath uneven. "Anna," he said, lower now, rougher. "Before this goes any further, there's something you need to understand." My chest rose and fell. "Okay." "I won't touch you," he said. "Not like that, not yet." The words landed heavy, but not cold. "Why?" I asked. "Because if I cross that line now," he said, "I bind you to violence you didn't choose." His thumb brushed once, just once, along my jaw. Grounding. Final. "When I touch you," he continued, eyes locked on mine, "it won't be because you needed protection." My throat tightened. "It'll be because you chose me, and no one can take that choice away." Something in my chest ached. I leaned in again, slower this time. "If I'm willing to risk it," I whispered. His breath stuttered. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he pulled back, clearly, decisively. "If you keep this up," he murmured, "it will cost you." I swallowed. "I'm willing to pay." His mouth curved, not a smile, something deeper. "You don't know what you're asking for." He stepped away before I could reach for him again. "Tonight, you sleep," he added. "You stay close, you stay safe." He paused at the door. "And Anna?" "Yes?" "When this is over," he said quietly, "you will be mine." The door closed behind him. I stood alone in the parlor, heart racing, the mark on my skin warm and real. Friday was coming, and whatever survived it would not be temporary. I woke before the sun, not because of fear, because the house was already awake. The low hum of movement reached me through the walls. Footsteps, a muted voice, the soft clink of ceramic. Purpose lived in the air here, even at dawn. I slipped out of bed quietly and followed the sound to the kitchen. Logan sat at the island, laptop open, jaw tight, one hand wrapped around a mug that had long since gone cold. Maps glowed faintly on the screen. Names, lines, routes I didn't understand but instinctively knew mattered. He looked up the second I stepped in. "You shouldn't sneak up on people like me," he said. "You shouldn't look so focused at 6 a.m., I replied. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. "Come here." He didn't stand, just turned the chair slightly and reached out. I went without thinking. He pulled me onto his lap like it was the most natural thing in the world, one arm braced around my waist, the other still resting on the counter. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet felt intimate, earned. His forehead rested briefly against my shoulder. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Yes." A pause. "Liar," he murmured. I smiled despite myself. He kissed me then. Soft, unhurried. The kind of kiss that didn't demand anything, just reminded me we were both still here. When he pulled back, his thumb lingered at my hip like it didn't want to leave. "We've got a long day," he said, "and a lot to do." I nodded. He helped me down gently, like he was reminding himself where the lines still were. The restaurant was already alive when we arrived. Too alive for the hour. Trucks lined the alley, vans I didn't recognize. Men moved in and out with quiet urgency, carrying boxes that weren't labeled and weren't light. No one dragged them. They were lifted, handled carefully. The air felt tight. Maria spotted me immediately.
"Oh, good," she said, forcing brightness as she crossed the floor. "You're early. That's good."
Her eyes told a different story. She took my arm and leaned in. "You stay with me today." It wasn't a request. I nodded. Logan moved through the space like gravity, issuing quiet commands, nodding once, twice. Men adjusted around him instinctively. President. The word Maria had used last night settled heavier now. I wiped counters that didn't need wiping, stacked cups already straight. Every time I looked up, someone new had arrived. Logan appeared beside me without a sound. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes." His eyes searched my face anyway. "Good," he said, though he didn't look convinced. We ended up in the back hallway by accident. Or maybe not. "You're staring," I said softly. "Because you're here," he replied. The space between us narrowed. His hand came up to my jaw. Just one finger, testing. Then his mouth was on mine. Warm, slow, intentional. The world narrowed to that single point. Ahem. Maria stood 10 feet away, arms crossed. "Well," she said dryly, "that answers a few questions." Heat rushed to my face. Logan didn't look embarrassed, just human. "Maria?" he said calmly. She waved him off. "Don't Maria me. Just don't do it where Frank can see. He'll pretend he doesn't, but then he'll lecture us all day." She turned to me, softer now. "You stay with me tonight."
I blinked. "What?"
"Not a suggestion," she added, glancing at Logan. "I'm not letting you be alone." Logan didn't argue.
"That's fine," he said. "Stay close."
The words weren't romantic. They were heavier than that. By late afternoon, the energy sharpened. Engines started, doors slammed. Men checked weapons they didn't show me.
I was refilling napkins when I heard it.
Dockside, old warehouse, East End. Low, casual, too casual.
My hand stilled.
Thomas always did that. Said one place, moved another.
He liked misdirection, liked making people feel safe before pulling the floor out from under them.
My chest tightened. Maria noticed instantly. "No," she said quietly, following my gaze. "You are not thinking what I think you're thinking." "I have a bad feeling," I whispered. "You always have a bad feeling right now."
"This is different."
She shook her head. "Anna, I can't sit still," I said. "I won't." Maria studied me for a long moment. Then she sighed. "I'm not letting you go alone." The sun was dipping low when we pulled out of the lot. I didn't know if we were heading towards safety, or straight into it. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Logan was already moving, and whatever was coming
would not wait for us to catch up.
We parked farther out than I expected. Maria cut the engine and left the keys in the cup holder, something she only did when she was nervous. The industrial lot stretched wide and empty, rows of shipping containers stacked like forgotten secrets. A single streetlight buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to feel unreliable.
"Stay here," Maria said, gripping my arm. "We wait."
I nodded, but my eyes were already moving.
Down the slope, the docks spread out along the river. Cranes bent like skeletal fingers against the night sky. Trucks rolled in, slow and deliberate. Black SUVs. A few bikes. Men moving in tight, disciplined groups.
Logan's men. I spotted him immediately. He stood near the lead truck, jacket on, posture loose but alert. Even from this distance, I could tell. He wasn't tense.
He thought he had the advantage.
My stomach tightened. Something was wrong. "That's too many," I whispered. Maria frowned. "Too many what?"
I leaned forward, scanning the left side of the lot. "The bikes," I said. "They're not committing."
She followed my gaze.
A line of motorcycles idled near a stack of containers. Engines low, lights off. They weren't advancing. They weren't leaving.
They were waiting. My pulse started to pound. Thomas always did this. He never sent everyone in at once. He let the other side feel confident, then closed the trap from behind. "I've seen this before," I said quietly. He'll let Logan move first. Maria shook her head. Logan knows what he's doing. I know, I said. That's why this will work. She stilled. What? I scanned the perimeter again. Then I saw him.
One of Logan's lieutenants. Tall, shaved head, scar along his jaw. He'd been at the restaurant. He'd nodded at me once, like he knew who I was even before Logan did.
He was positioned near the rear flank, exactly where Thomas would strike. Maria, I said, already reaching for the door. Her hand clamped around my wrist. Anna, no. I'm not going in, I said fast. I just need him to know. Gunfire hadn't started yet. This was the last window. I moved low and fast, cutting behind the containers until I was close enough to be seen, but not exposed. The air smelled like oil and river water and metal, sharp enough to make my teeth ache. I raised my hand once.
The lieutenant spotted me.
His eyes widened, just a fraction. I shook my head, pointed left, then tapped my chest twice and drew a short line across my throat. He's lying. You're walking into it. For one suspended heartbeat, nothing happened. Then his posture changed. He touched his ear, spoke once, short and sharp. Everything shifted.
Men repositioned, quiet, fast. Logan turned, scanning the perimeter.
For one breathless second, his eyes lifted.
Found me. His expression didn't change, but his stance did.
Then the first shot rang out. Chaos detonated.
Gunfire cracked from the left as Thomas's men finally broke cover. Logan's crew was already moving, already responding.
Too fast, because they'd been warned. Maria yanked me back just as bullets tore into the container above us, metal screaming.
Are you insane? She hissed.
My hands were shaking. He always holds men back, I said. Always. The noise swallowed everything. Shouting, engines roaring, boots pounding concrete. Smoke bloomed across the dock. I tried to look again, tried to find Logan. I saw bodies moving, men falling, a truck door slamming, then an explosion of sound where Logan had been standing. My heart stopped. I couldn't see him. Smoke swallowed the space. Logan, I whispered, like he could hear me. Maria dragged me lower, covering me with her body. Don't look. But it was too late. I had already lost sight of him. And in the silence between shots, one thought ripped through me, sharp and final. If he was gone, this was my fault.
The docks disappeared into gunfire and smoke.
And I didn't know who was coming back. The gunfire didn't stop. It shifted, like the docks were breathing, short, violent bursts followed by pockets of unbearable quiet. Smoke rolled low and thick, burning my eyes, coating my tongue with metal.
I kept staring at the place where Logan had been standing, kept waiting for him to move.
He didn't.
Men ran past shouting orders. Engines screamed and died. Somewhere close, someone cried out in pain.
But Logan didn't move. Maria's arms locked around me, forcing me down behind the container. Don't, she said fiercely. Don't you look. I have to, I whispered. Because if I didn't see him stand, if I didn't see proof, then my chest already knew the answer. Time stretched into something cruel. Then boots hit concrete nearby. Heavy, measured, not running. I squeezed my eyes shut. Where is she? Logan's voice.
Alive.
The sound punched the breath out of me.
Maria froze.
I lifted my head slowly. Logan stepped through the smoke. His jacket was torn at the shoulder. Blood darkened the fabric near his ribs. His face was streaked with soot and sweat, but his eyes were sharp.
Locked on me. My knees gave out.
He crossed the distance fast, dropping to one knee in front of me, hands gripping my arms like he needed to feel me there. You're hurt, I choked. He shook his head once. Vest? My hands trembled as I pressed against his chest, felt it. Hard, solid, unmistakable. Armor. A broken sound escaped me, half laugh, half sob, and I pressed my forehead to his. I thought... My voice cracked. I know, he said quietly.
His thumb brushed beneath my eye, wiping away tears I hadn't felt fall.
You shouldn't have been here, he added.
I know, I whispered. But he always lies. He always holds men back. I heard it. I knew.
You saved lives, Logan cut in. I looked up at him, stunned.
Including his. Behind him, the fight was ending. Thomas's bikes lay scattered. His men were being hauled up, disarmed, bleeding, furious,
Defeated. Logan stood and pulled me up with him, one arm firm at my back.
"No one touches her," he said. Not loud,
Absolute. Every head turned.
every man understood.
She's under my protection, Logan continued, and she stands with us. The words settled over the docks like a verdict. He looked down at me then, not fierce, certain. This is what I meant, he said quietly, when I said there'd be no pulling back. I nodded, not because I was afraid, because I wasn't. I know, I said.
He searched my face one last time.
You still choosing me? He asked. Sirens wailed somewhere down the river. Smoke drifted into the night. The world held its breath. I took his hand. Yes. Something dark and satisfied crossed his expression. Not possession. Claim. Good, Logan said.
He leaned down then and kissed me.
Not rushed, not restrained. Slow, certain, not a promise, a decision. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Now, he said, voice low and steady and final, this is finished. And for the first time since I ran, I believed him. The docks didn't look like a battlefield once the noise faded. That was the strangest part.
By the time the sun started to bleed pale light over the river, the worst of it had already been erased. Shell casings swept away. Blood washed into the cracks between concrete slabs. Engines gone, men gone.
Only the smell lingered.
Metal, smoke, river water. Logan kept a hand on my back as we walked toward the SUV. Not guiding, not pushing, grounding.
Maria was quiet beside us. Frank had already left with two others, his jaw set, shoulders heavy with the kind of exhaustion that came from surviving something you didn't plan to lose. No one spoke, because it was done.
Inside the SUV, Logan closed the door himself and leaned against it for a second, head tipping back like the night had finally caught up to him. I reached for him without thinking.
He stilled, not pulling away, just registering it. You're shaking, he said. So are you, I replied. He huffed a quiet breath, almost a laugh, and let me step closer. His arms came around me then, not tight, not desperate, solid. We stayed like that until the engine started. The drive back was silent, not empty, full.
When we reached the house, Logan dismissed the men with brief nods and clipped words. Orders for later, meetings tomorrow, cleanup,
Control returning?
Inside, the lights were low. The house smelled like coffee and leather and him.
Maria turned to me in the entryway. You're staying, she said, not asking. I glanced at Logan.
He nodded once. She's not leaving tonight.
Good, Maria said. Then, lighter but not joking, because I am too tired to pretend this didn't almost kill me. She squeezed my arm once and disappeared down the hall.
Logan watched her go, then looked back at me.
Come on, he said quietly. Not upstairs, not yet. He led me to the kitchen instead, sat me at the counter, poured water, pressed the glass into my hands.
Drink.
I did. My fingers finally stopped trembling. Only then did he sit across from me, elbows on the counter, hands clasped.
You shouldn't have come, he said again. I know.
But I'm glad you did, he added. That mattered more.
The silence stretched. Not awkward, not heavy.
Earned.
I thought you were dead, I said finally. His jaw tightened. I saw your face. I swallowed. Don't ever do that to me again. A corner of his mouth lifted, barely. Noted. He stood then, slow and deliberate, and held out his hand.
Come upstairs. This time, it wasn't about safety. It was about rest.
In the bedroom, he shut the door, but didn't lock it. Stripped off his jacket, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled his boots off with a tired grunt.
I stood there, suddenly unsure. He looked up at me immediately. Hey, he said gently. You don't have to decide anything tonight. I nodded. He lay back, one arm tucked behind his head, the other extended toward me, open. Invitation, not expectation.
I climbed in beside him.
He pulled me close, my head fitting against his shoulder like it had been waiting for it.
His hand rested on my back.
Not roaming, not claiming, present. We lay there listening to the house breathe. I meant what I said, he murmured after a while, about waiting. I know. But this, his fingers pressed once, firm and steady against my spine. This is still mine to give. I smiled into his chest.
Good, I whispered, because I'm not going anywhere. His arm tightened.
Outside morning finally arrived, and for the first time since I ran, nothing was chasing me. By noon, the restaurant was awake in a way it hadn't been before. Not busy, alert. Men moved in and out without ordering food. Boxes were stacked and restacked, shifted with care. Engines idled too long in the lot before shutting off. Conversations stayed low and unfinished. I stayed behind the counter with Maria, wiping the same surface more times than necessary. "You're doing fine," she said, not looking at me. "I don't feel fine."
She finally glanced over. "That's because you're paying attention."
Logan arrived just after 1. No jacket, no rush. The room adjusted the moment he stepped inside. Not silence, respect.
He didn't look for me right away. He spoke to Frank, nodded at 2 men near the back, took a folded paper from someone I didn't recognize, and tucked it into his pocket without comment.
Then, only then, his eyes found me. And held. Not hunger, not urgency, certainty. "Anna," he said. Just my name. The room felt smaller. "Come here." I moved around the counter, pulse steady this time.
He didn't touch me at first.
He stood beside me.
That was enough.
"This is Anna," he said to the room, not announcing, not explaining. "Anyone who hasn't met her should." A few nods, a few murmurs, no questions. One man, tall, scar across his jaw, looked at my wrist, then at Logan, then nodded once. Recognition. Logan's hand came up then. Not gripping, not pulling, resting at my lower back. Subtle, unmistakable. "This doesn't change the rules," Logan continued. "It clarifies them." His gaze swept the room.
She's under my protection. That means she's under yours. Anyone who brings trouble to her brings it to me.
No one argued. No one even shifted. "Good," Logan said quietly. He turned to me then, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "You all right?" "Yes," I said. And this time it was true. His thumb pressed once, gentle, grounding. Then he stepped away like he trusted the space he'd just created. Maria exhaled beside me. "Well," she muttered, "that answers a few questions." I smiled despite myself. Later, when the room thinned and the boxes were gone and the engines faded, Logan found me again near the back hallway.
"You good for a walk?" he asked.
I nodded. Outside, the afternoon sun hit warm and clean. The lot was quiet now. Ordinary. Logan stopped near the edge of it, turning to face me fully.
"This is as public as it gets," he said. "Anything beyond this is just ours."
I swallowed. "Okay." He studied my face like he always did, checking, not claiming. Then he leaned in. Slow, deliberate. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate.
It was deep and certain and restrained in the way that meant it would last.
When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Still with me?" he murmured.
"Yes."
"Good," he said, "because now we build." His hand slid into mine. Not hiding, not parading, just choosing. And for the first time since I walked into that restaurant asking for work, I wasn't being watched. I was being stood beside. The house is quiet in a way it never has been before. Not guarded, not alert, not waiting. Just quiet. I'm standing at the kitchen window when Logan comes in, jacket draped over his arm, phone finally silent in his pocket. He doesn't say anything at first, just sets the jacket down, washes his hands, grounds himself back into the room. Then he looks at me. Not checking, not scanning, seeing. "It's done," he says. Not dramatic, not triumphant. Finished. My chest tightens anyway. "You're sure?" He nods once. "They're gone. Leadership folded, the rest scattered. No one's looking for you anymore." The words land slowly. My body doesn't celebrate yet. It just releases something it's been holding too long. He crosses the room but stops a step away, always giving me the space to choose. "You are mine," he says quietly. "I am."
His eyes soften. "And I told you I wouldn't touch you until this was finished."
I swallow. I remember. The silence stretches, thick, charged, careful. Then he asks, low and steady, "Do you still want me?" Not ownership, not assumption, choice. I step into him. That's my answer.
His hands come to my waist, firm, reverent, real. Like he's been holding them back for weeks and now finally lets them rest where they've wanted to be all along. The kiss is different this time.
No restraint, no edge of stopping, just warmth, depth, intention. He pulls back, breath uneven. "This isn't protection anymore," he murmurs. "This is mine to give." "I know," I whisper, "and I'm still choosing you." Something in him finally gives way. He lifts me, not rushed, not desperate, and carries me down the hall like it's exactly where I've always belonged. Like there's no danger in the world that needs watching anymore. Later, wrapped in quiet and sheets and the steady weight of his arm around me, I realize something important.
He didn't save me by fighting for me.
He saved me by waiting, by letting me choose, by standing still, by finishing what he started. I finally realized that I am not surviving. I am home.